Of course, he's overseas, so he can't watch it. He's in bed. He can't watch it with us.
All right. Tom is a great photographer. He's local near me. He lives in Hanover County. I'm in Henrico County, but he's a fantastic photographer. Does a lot of work at Lewis Skinner. You see lots of his photos of flowers and everything at Lewis Skinner, and I've seen this presentation that he's going to give us tonight on doing tabletop photography. And so if I'll go ahead and I'm not going to mute everybody, but if you want questions as we go, or
yes, questions are fine. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom. Oh, let's see. What am I going to let? Hold on a second. I got to let you share your screen. All right, so I'll turn it over to Tom and let him go ahead and share his screen. And
okay, thank you, Kim. Can you see it?
Only half of the wording.
Okay, let me go
I
back.
got everything.
Okay, yeah, okay, something happened.
Yeah.
But anyway, as Kemp mentioned, I do a lot of photography out at the Botanic Gardens. I'm a volunteer there, and so I go there about once a week. I take a lot of photographs and I give them to the Botanic Gardens to use for their social media, which is a good win-win situation. I get to go to the gardens on a pretty regular basis, and I usually go in early before it opens so that I have, I don't have people tripping over me and I'm not tripping over them. So I like to do a lot of flower photography as well as landscapes, but there's something special about the flowers that I really like. So why I call this tabletop photography, I could call it studio photography, but I don't have a studio. What I have is a spare bedroom where I set up and I do the photography. One advantage of doing this, as opposed to going to the Botanic Gardens, is I have control. When I'm out at the Botanic Gardens, the subject is whatever that I happen to have there. The lighting is very highly variable. The backgrounds can be very problematic. So there's a lot of things that you don't have control over. So if I'm going to do tabletop photography, I get to control all of those aspects. And that's what I really like about it. This is a photograph that I took back in about 2012 when I first got my first digital SLR. I used Canon cameras, and I set this up on my kitchen table. The only lighting was the pendant light above the kitchen table. And I was on a tripod, and I was trying to get all of the detail in this very nice rose. And I really liked that. And that was a very simple thing to do, just using the available light, my tripod, my camera. I was able to take a shot like this. So I've bought a lot more equipment since then, but you don't need a huge amount of equipment to do nice things. Here's an example of a photograph that I took out at the Botanic Gardens. Iris, it was a beautiful iris on a very nice spring day. The biggest problem with it is there's a shrub behind it. And so that shrub has a lot of texture to it. And I didn't want there to be too much definition to it. So I went with a very shallow depth of field in order to not have the background become problematic. But here's one that I took of an iris that I grew in my own yard. And I brought this indoors using one light, a reflector, and a black background. And I was able to get all of the depth of field that I wanted. I was able to have control over the lighting, the subject, the background. And this is what I was trying to accomplish with it. And in about, probably a month, I'll be doing this again with the irises that are growing. So something I enjoy doing. Useful equipment for me is, of course, my camera. and a tripod. I always use a camera on the tripod for this. One or more lights. Most of the time anymore, I'm using a single light, but sometimes I'll add a second light in order to backlight it or get some highlights. I like to use a macro lens because the macro lens has a good ability to give me control of the depth of field and focus in on what I want it to do. I use a 100 millimeter macro lens, which works nicely. Sometimes I'll use extension tubes. I don't use close-up filters. I did years ago, but I use extension tubes, and I recently took some pictures using a 40 millimeter lens with extension tubes because the wider angle gives you a different look at the subject. And so I sometimes will do that. And then I have some different tools that I use in order to position the subject. Okay, do I light with a speed light or constant light? And the answer is both. And I'll talk about both of those. Okay. So I have some tools that I use to position the subject. The tools are things such as little vices and clamps that I can use. These are the extension tubes that I use. They basically are a wide spot between the camera lens and the camera body, which pushes the lens further away so that you're actually projecting further onto the sensor. And when you do that, you get a magnification. The negative to using these is you can no longer focus on something in the distance. You're now only able to take close-up photographs, but you can convert a standard lens into a macro lens by using these. And like these typically come in a set, like this set is 12 millimeter, 20 millimeter, and 36 millimeter. You can use one or all of them, however you want to do, and you can get some very significant magnification with these. Okay. You can get screw-on close-up lenses, which will give you magnification at the end of your lens, and that's an inexpensive way to get into it and see what you can get out of it. And these come in different magnification rates, and you can use one or all of them depending on how you want to do it. But you know, these are not going to be as good as a good macro lens. They're going to have some distortion to them because of the nature of that beast, but it's a good way to get started and playing around, see if this is the type of thing you like to do. When I first started and I got some lights, I just bought these at Lowe's or Home Depot, and you can clamp them onto a back of a chair or something in order to direct the light. And this is an inexpensive way to get started, having a couple of lights that you can adjust and position. I often use these bulbs. These are, they're pretty bright. They're 105 watt compact fluorescent bulbs. They're basically designed for photography. They've got, you know, they're daylight balanced, so you get a nice white light, and they work very well if you're using something like a soft box or an umbrella. These I have not used yet, but I found these online. These are dimmable LED bulbs. These are 85 watt bulbs, and I'm going to give these a try because this allows you to control how much light you're sending to the image. So I think putting these inside a soft box or with an umbrella could be an interesting way to go in order to have dimmable light and controllable light. I've also gotten these. You can get a set of these for around $50 on Amazon, 2 stands and 2 umbrellas. And, you know, these can be very nice for setting up and doing the photography. I like to do that. I like to go back here. I like to shoot through the umbrella. I like to use a translucent umbrella. It gives me a large, soft area of light. So it's directional, but it's very soft. It tends to wrap around the subject. It will be directional, but it's not harsh lighting, which I like about it. Also, I use soft boxes at times, which basically give you the same type of effect. You have a large area that the light passes through, so you're getting a large area of light, which tends to cover the subject. You know, you're using a fairly small subject when you're doing a flower, but you have a large area of light that's kind of giving you the effect of being outside on a bright, overcast day. Is the type of lighting that I'm looking for. Now, this is something I find to be very helpful. This is an 18-inch diameter ring light. It has LED lights and it's dimmable. And that really works out nicely for some things You'd be able to control what you're doing. You can change the angle of it. You can even tilt it down so that it's above your subject and pointing down. There's a lot of flexibility with this type of a light. And I've been using these. In fact, I'm using this to light myself right now for the Zoom meeting. This is the strobe that I use. It's a Flashpoint 600, I believe it's a 600 watt strobe, and it's adjustable. I've been using this a lot lately for the tabletop photography I'm doing, shooting it through a large translucent umbrella. What I like about it is the reason I went to this is sometimes when I'm doing these and I'm getting really close and I'm trying to get a lot of depth of field, my exposures can get pretty long. And if there's any vibration or air movement or whatever, you may get a little bit of vibration in it. By using the strobe, you know, you're shooting at 1,000th of a second or a 2,000th of a second, the light is on. So that tends to stop any motion you have, and it gives you a crisper image. So I tend to like the using the strobe for certain subjects. This is one of the clamps that I use. It's a nice little vise. It's fairly heavy, but I'll clamp the flower stem in here. It's tiltable. I can position it however I want to. And these work out very nicely. I can also use one of these to hold a piece of foam board as a reflector. So I make use of a couple of these when I'm taking these photographs. I also make use of clamps like these. These can clamp onto a table, and you can hold a subject with them. You can hold a piece of foam board or a reflector. These can be helpful in positioning things, and they're useful for the tabletop setups. So one of the things I want to use is depth of field to my advantage. When I'm out in the botanic gardens, I'm usually shooting for fairly shallow depth of field because the backgrounds can get problematic. But when I'm doing tabletop photography, sometimes I want a lot of depth of field, and so I can get that if I have control of the background. Here's a photograph I took about 2 years ago out of the botanic gardens. This is a very small flower. I think it's called a Siberian squill. And it was growing down in the gardens. And of course, this thing's only about 3 inches tall. So to take the photograph, I had to lay on the ground. I practically had my camera on the ground taking the shot. The first shot on the left was at f2.8. So you have to have your focus really tight when you have as little depth of field as you have at f2.8, but the background is very good. Going to f5.6, which is often very much where I would be shooting out at the gardens to try to get a little bit more depth of field, you're starting to see a little bit more of what's going on in the background. Going up to f11 and f22, the background is just problematic. It does not add to the picture. And so I wouldn't shoot this situation, anything higher than f5.6. It's just, the background is a problem. But if you control the background, in this case, I was using a white background, I can shoot a very shallow depth of field and have just the tip of the anther in focus, just to get that little bit of detail. Or I can go out to f22 and get all of it in detail. So I have a lot of ability to decide, where do I want to be? Do I want to go with a little bit of detail or a lot of detail? As far as backgrounds go, I use a lot of different backgrounds. I like a black background because a black background is just very clean looking. It's easy to make a black background. I just have a sheet of black cloth that I hang on the wall, or I have a stand that I hang it on. White backgrounds can be done in a couple of different ways, and they also give a very nice look. I also try to do naturalistic backgrounds. I try to do backgrounds that make it look like I'm outdoors taking a photograph in nature. You can do patterns, textures, colors, a lot of different ways to do backgrounds for your photography. This is a photograph on the black background. And again, the flower just pops on that background. It looks very good there. And then I can do it Wait a minute. Something went backwards. Okay. So on the black background, I like the way it looks. Looks very crisp and very pops. This is done on a white background. Now, this was done by having a white background, not just by taking the background out in Photoshop, because it does make a difference when you're trying to do that, trying to find the edges and get everything. And also, when you have that white background instead of the black background, you may adjust your lighting because it looks different when you have a white background as opposed to the black background. So you may change your lighting when you have that pure white background behind it. So I tend to do that more with backgrounds rather than post-processing. This is a setup I had where I have my light was basically above me and in front, shining on a white foam board background. And this is a flower from my garden. I have a clamp that's holding that white piece of paper to reflect some light up from underneath to help give it some fill light. And you can see the image on the back of my camera that I'm about to take. And so that's this type of setup I use: a single light, a white background, and a reflector to help control the light. And that's the shot that I take. And this is the type of result I get from that. Again, a white background with using a lot of depth of field to get a lot of detail out of the subject. This is a stand. It's fairly inexpensive. It's about $50. This is good for using like a 5-foot wide by 7-foot background. You can get those in a lot of different colors and a lot of different patterns, and they come in very handy. This is one of the backgrounds. It's just has a pattern to it. If you set this back behind your subject, it just gives you kind of a nice bokeh-looking background, which is good. And when you're not taking photographs of flowers, you can take pictures of your grandchildren. So that works out for that too. But the other thing you can do, which I started playing around with a couple years ago, is changing out those backgrounds. Okay, I've got that background. Let me go to a green one, maybe one with blue in it. That takes a lot of time to make changes. So I started making my own backgrounds, and the way I make them is on the computer. So here's my setup. I've got my laptop, and I've got a lot of backgrounds in a folder saved in Lightroom. The computer is connected to my flat screen TV, and I've got lighting on the subject. I have a dahlia there, I believe it is, and I'm taking photographs of it that way in order to get the background. And the nice thing about this is once I have it set up, I can change from one background to the next in about 10 seconds because I've got a file full of backgrounds, and I can just move through them and change them in order to get different looks. Here's a screenshot of my background. Some of the backgrounds that I have saved in my computer. I can do a white background, I can do a black background, and I can do all of these others. And most of these are basically photos taken purposely out of focus in the botanic gardens or in my yard in order to have somewhat of a naturalistic looking background. And these are some that I made using Topaz Studio, using some of the effects in that, just to try to make some different backgrounds in order to work with. So I've been playing around with those backgrounds. The nice thing is I can be set up like this. Here I'm using my LED ring light, a single reflector on the side, the background there behind it, and I take the shot. And I like that. And I said, well, maybe try something else. So I go with a different background, and then maybe a different background. And so very quickly, I can go from one background to another pretty simply. And again, for shots like those, I was using just a single light, a piece of foam board for a reflector, and then the background that I have set up. So it's a pretty simple setup to do this. And when you're doing this, this gives you the option of experimenting with lighting a lot. As you move the light around your subject, you can really see what that does. And there's a lot of different ways you can light your subject, even if you're just using a single lamp. I took this earlier this year. This is a hyacinth that I bought out at the grocery store. I let it get fully bloomed out, and I took this with a single light. I used my strobe for this. It was above and a bit to the left of the subject. I had a piece of foam board on the right of it to give it some fill lighting, and I got a pretty nice shot out of it. That was pretty straightforward, easy shot to take. And here's a tulip that I took. This tulip, I took it over a couple of different days as it was opening up. This is another set of tulips that I had bought at the grocery store, and I brought them home. And as it was opening up, I was taking photographs of it. What I was trying to do is get the light inside the tulip. So I had my light above and behind the tulip. So it was lighting the tulip up so that it would glow from within, and also lighting up the leaf here. So I was able to get what I was looking for, and I wanted to get all of the detail in that tulip. Really what I was trying to go for here. And I was very happy with that result. Now here's two shots of different tulips that I had. The first one was very straightforward lighting, slightly above and to the left, lighting up the subject. It looked pretty good. The one on the right, I moved the light more around to the side so that it's almost to the back, but not quite. Gives me a different look, and it's also because it's partly to the back, it's lighting up the stem and the leaves differently. And I like the way they show up against the black background. So then I took two more shots. I moved further around to the back and above on the one on the left, and then further above on the one on the right. So that again, I was getting that effect of having the light filling up the tulip from within is what I was shooting for. And I'm very happy with that. I like the way that one came out. So just by playing around with the lighting, moving around, you can get a lot of different effects from it. Now, to control the outcome, I like to use a tripod because the exposures may be long. And I often use a time delay and a shutter release cable. That way I have everything set up, give it a 2-second time delay to take any motion out of it. Use manual focus to make sure I know exactly where I'm focused on. I typically use live view for this so that I can see in the back of the camera what I'm looking at, what it's finally going to look like. Play around with lighting, play around with backgrounds, and take a whole bunch of pictures and find the ones that you like the best. It's a fun way to spend the afternoon, and I've got a few things in my backyard right now that I know I'm going to be working with tomorrow. Now, sometimes when I take something, I love calla lilies. One of the nice things about calla lilies is, first of all, they have these beautiful curves to them, and you can get them in a lot of different colors. The other thing is, a calla lily, if you cut it off and you're going to pose it, it can last for hours, maybe a couple of days. It doesn't wilt very quickly. Where I have photographed some other flowers that I have cut, brought in, and within 15 minutes, they're wilting. Calla lilies are good because once you get them, they can last you for a good while for taking photographs. So you can do a lot of different things without having to rush, and that's very nice. Now for this one, I wanted to get that curve at the very front in focus. That's what I really wanted to do. I wasn't concerned about getting the rest. It's showing the rest of the shape, it's showing the other curves, but I was mainly focused on getting that front edge in focus. So I like that. But then I started on a new technique that I've been using called focus stacking. And focus stacking is where you take a number of photographs, changing your focus between photographs. And there's two ways to do that. One way is to actually physically change the focus of the lens between shots. The other is to leave your focus set and slowly move the camera between shots. Both ways will do it. Now, there are some cameras, some of the newer mirrorless cameras I know have focus stacking as a built-in feature. You can set it and it will change the focus of the lens through a series of shots and get you that focus stacking, and then you combine all of your images in software. You can do this manually if you have patience, or you can do it electronically. And the photos are combined, and I use software that is designed specifically for this called Helicon Focus, and it's really good software. It does an excellent job. Here is another calla lily I took using focus stacking. I took about 30 photographs for this to make sure that I had everything from the very front edge to the very back in focus, to be sharp and clear and have all of the detail that I could get. That's what I was looking for in this, and I was able to get that through focus stacking. It's a big enough flower. I don't think I could have gotten it all in a single shot, just trying to stop down. This I took at either F8 or F9, but 30 shots that were stacked together, and to give that result.
Can I ask
Here's
you a question?
another
about
example.
stacking?
Pardon?
When you do the focus stacking, because John talked about that one time when he did it, do you start at the front or go to the back, or you just pick different places at random to focus? How do you know where to?
Let me address
focus?
that in just a minute.
Okay.
I'll tell you about that. I do it both ways, starting at the front and starting at the back, depending on what equipment I'm using. And I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Okay.
Here's an example. This is a Christmas cactus that I have blooming. And I really like, you know, this is down to about 1:1 on my macro lens. I'm focused in very close. And this is at f/22. And I really wanted to get the end of this part, because that's really kind of interesting looking. And I wanted to get as much detail as I could. So I took this, I believe this was taken at f/22, just as a single shot. Then I decided, well, let's do some focus stacking. And this is what you get with focus stacking. This was taking about 20 shots at f/9, using my strobe and using my focus stacking equipment. You can see how much more depth of field and how much more detail I'm able to get by doing that than the previous image. I mean, I was happy with that image, but the ability to get this through the focus stacking, to me, it was very well worth it. Much better detail. Now, one way to do it is you can get a manual focus stacking rail. You attach this to your tripod, you attach your camera to it, you take a photo, and you turn the knob a little bit to move either forward or backwards, however you decide to do it. Take the next shot, move it a little bit. And it's marked off in millimeters, so you can take a shot every millimeter, every 2 millimeters, however you want to do it, in order to work your way through it. And this is an inexpensive way to get started. I think this one I saw was online at about $100, $120. Okay. This is what I first bought for focus stacking. I bought this just about a year ago. I had read about it online, and they had these available through lens rentals. And so I rented one. By the end of the first day of my rental, I ordered my own. This is a computer, and it is a motorized focusing rail. So I can basically set my camera up, and when I use this, I set my camera up and I focus on whatever is the farthest point that I want to be in focus. And one of the reasons I do that is as you take pictures, it slowly moves backwards on the rail. And as you move backwards, you get further away from the subject. And so the subject starts to actually get a little bit smaller in the viewing screen. If I do it the other direction, I can start off close and then actually end up overfilling the frame. So I start with my subject with it at the very back point, and then move it back until I say, okay, this is where I wanted to stop. And when I say that, it will tell me, okay, you have just moved 35 millimeters. And then I have to say, how many photos do I want to take? So maybe I'll take 20 shots within that 35 millimeters. Sometimes if it's something with a lot of detail, I'll take a photograph every millimeter just to get more shots, gives you more detail and less chance of having, blurry shots. So now this, I got this, and this probably cost me about $800, or maybe with some of the accessories I got, I spent about $1,000 on it. I use it a lot. This is my main thing I use when I'm doing focus stacking at home. it would be cumbersome for me to take this out into the field, although you can get battery packs for it and do that, but it would be kind of cumbersome to do that. This is one of the first shots that I took when I got this, and I got it through Lens Rentals. A dandelion I picked up on my morning walk. The ability to get all of that in focus was pretty impressive to me. And this was going in even further and getting everything in there in focus and in really good detail. Just something I couldn't do with a single shot with my macro lens. Okay. This is a gumball. I have about 1 million of these in my yard at any one time. But it's amazing the detail and the structure of this little 1-inch diameter gumball. Here's another piece of equipment I have. This is called a Helicon FB tube. Now what this does is you put this on between the camera and the lens. So it is an extension tube. But what it also does is you connect it to your phone. You have an app on your phone. You tell it what lens are you using, what f-stop are you going to use, and approximately how many shots you would expect to take. So once you do that, you disconnect from the phone and you can use it all day long without having to, reprogram it. And what this does is this takes over the focus on your lens. So you set your lens to manual focus, and you can set this to shoot toward you or away from you, or have your focus change forward or backwards. I have it change forward. I have it change shoot toward infinity because I find out that that works well for the type of things that I'm doing. I'm usually using this outdoors, like in the botanic gardens, and it works out very nice. Now, the thing about this is also the people who make the Helicon Focus software that I use for the focus stacking. They are in the Ukraine, and they are in one of the cities that has, been attacked. I don't know whether these are available. This cost me $209, and I got it before Christmas last year. It was well worth it. But they make them for Canon and Nikon mounts, and it does a very nice job. Now, this is one of the first times I used it at the Botanic Gardens. This is a single shot. This is an f6.3, which is very commonly what I would use out there. ISO 640 because there's not a huge amount of light. I was on a tripod, and so this took it at 1/25th of a second on a tripod, and I'm very happy with that photograph. I have the main part that I needed to be in focus, and then the rest of the photograph, it suggests whatever else is, but you see the detail in the blossom that is facing you. So I'm happy with that photograph. I would normally be pleased. And also the background is very soft, good. This is with 20 photos stacked using that FB tube. Now, the nice thing about this is it gives you much more detail of the flower, but the background, since there was that f6.3, the background is still very soft. It's just that all of these 20 shots, each one had a little bit more detail, and the software takes just the detail out and combines it. So I was able to get this very nice shot. And if I had a camera that had built-in focus stacking, I could have done this with it as well. Now that FB tube cost $209. The Canon camera that I was looking at that does the built-in focus stacking was around $4,000. So I decided not to buy that camera yet. But this is the type of thing I can do with the focus stacking. Here's another shot. There's a very small blossom on a bromeliad out at the gardens. And that was, again, 20 or 15 shots stacked in order to get the main part with a lot of detail, which is what I was looking for. Oops. Okay, I think that's the end. Okay. So I really like the focus stacking. I like the tabletop photography, and I combine both of those And I've been doing a lot with this at home, and it really is a lot of fun to play with. So, anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, they're beautiful. I wish I could do that.
Well, you can actually. Let me see. How do I? Okay, stop sharing here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's the thing that I like about this is that it doesn't take a lot of equipment and it doesn't take a lot of space. You know, a single light, piece of foam board for a reflector, and even if I'll use just a sheet of black cloth for a background, you can do a lot of really interesting things this way. So, you know, I found this to be really, and you know, you get into the winter time and there's not a lot going on. It's hard to get out and, you know, take a lot of photographs. I tend to go to different stores, you know, buy flowers there, and take photographs, and I'm really happy with what I can get out of it.
I have a lot of issue getting everything in focus, and I don't have all the equipment you do. And all I usually do is a black background and just move around a portable light to kind of highlight different areas. But I guess I am not moving the f-stop far enough out or something to get most of it in focus.
Are you using a tripod?
Yes. And a macro, I use Olympus, and I have a macro lens that I use as well, but I just can't get everything in focus at times. It's just kind of, I play for a few hours. It kills a day. So what the heck?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, one of the reasons I went to different lighting first is I was getting some blur, because the room that I do this in, it's the room above my garage. It's a wooden floor. So, you know, if the washing machine is running or the air is blowing in the room, I can get, you know, a little bit of motion. So using the strobe, I felt helped that. But, you know, and so when I'm trying to get a lot of, you know, the problem with going too far, you know, my macro lens goes to f32, and I will sometimes go that far, but that's not the sharpest point on the lens. Yeah. But it is nice being able to get, you know, as much detail as I can. And sometimes I'll just do it where I'll step through and I'll start off at f2.8 and then go to f4, f6.3, and go through and do a whole series. Say, well, which of these do I like the best? Because sometimes I really like it where you have just one little point in focus and the rest is soft. But there's other times I really want to see all of the detail that I can get.
Right. And I got irises in the backyard. I didn't even think about bringing one in and shooting it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing to do. I mean, their irises pose very nicely. Yeah. And, you know, if you bring it in and put it in water, a lot of times there's going to be another bud on that stem. And when that one opens, you can shoot that too. So, I've got irises blooming. I've got a couple tulips. My problem is I have a brown thumb. So I would like to grow more flowers and be able to photograph them, but they tend to die. So I do better going to places like Strange's or Wegmans or Kroger. I can often get some decent flowers there. Right.
Yeah, I'll buy them too sometimes because they just seem to be a lot better than what's in my yard. Bugs attack them. So, and I try not to put any thing on the grass to, you know, anything to kill them. I don't want to, I feed the birds and I feed the squirrels and the rabbits and everything else. So I don't want to poison anybody.
Well, the other thing that I find when I do this is, I just did this the other day. I bought some dahlias out at Strange's. Dahlias are one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And I was focus stacking this one dahlia. It was really nice. And then I pull up the picture because I combined 30 images, and there was a very tiny insect crawling across one of the petals. And he showed up in about 10 shots in a row. So
in different places.
So the different shot had this little thing. So I had to go through and edit this guy out of there. I didn't see it when I was taking the picture. And I've got some flowers that I'll be, you know, in a couple of weeks, my lilies of the valley will be blooming. And so unfortunately, that's always right about peak pollen season, because I'll bring some of those in to photograph. And last year when I did it, I had to spend a long time, first of all, actually washing them to try to get all the pollen off.
Yeah,
And then when I was done, having to go through and do spot removal to take off the pollen that I couldn't remove. And because I couldn't even see it when I was taking the pictures. And then I blow it up on the screen, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of pollen there.
well, the shots were beautiful. I'll
Oh,
get there
thank you.
one day.
Well, it's what we do. We play with it and experiment. And I've been
Yep.
doing this for a lot of years, and I keep trying to do it differently.
Yeah.
Philip, did he answer your question that you had posted?
Yes, you did.
I thought he had answered that. Yeah.
Yeah, did you say you use primarily manual focus?
Yes, both of these I use in manual focus because on the one, I just set the focus manually and then it slowly moves the camera. The other one, that FB tube takes over the focus and changes the focus for you in order to do it. And I hope that that company is still able to supply the equipment. I hate what's going on in Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
But they make great, the equipment that they make is really good and their software is excellent. And so I've made use of that and been very happy with it.
I've got a question about focus stacking, and this is more really a curiosity thing. You were mentioning focus stacking when you were actually out in the botanical garden. Do you find that there are limitations if there's any sort of breeze, or is it pretty resilient?
I've had good results. I do it on a tripod, and I've had good results even with a little bit of breeze and a little bit of motion. It's done a pretty good job of bringing them together. But it is something that, well, with anything out there, trying to take photographs. You know, I went out to Powhatan State Park to do some wildflower photography, and I had okay results. But I was out there on a very windy day.
Okay.
And again, I was looking at things that were very small, trying to get my camera practically on the ground to do that. But I did get some decent results, but I have done it at the Botanic Gardens with pretty good success. And, you know, there's some where, like, I've taken an orchid and it's like that one that I showed where one part was in focus and the rest was soft focus, and it was fine. But if I kept going with the focus stacking, I could get that whole bunch of orchids in focus, which was really very nice.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Tom. Excellent.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
thank
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and really enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you. Take care, everybody.
You too.
Thank you very much.
So I guess we won't get the results tonight, huh?
No, I sent John an email, but I didn't get any kind of reply back from him to see whether or not he would be able to sign on. He didn't sign up on the meetup page either. So maybe he had something else tonight.
Yeah.
So I guess unless anybody else has anything, anybody got anything? What are y'all shooting nowadays? Are you able to get out and do some shooting?
I hope to next week when I go camping.
Yeah.
We were out in Yorktown this past week to just take some shots around Riverwalk.
Well, if
Nothing
anyone's
special.
interested,
Got nothing special out of it, but it was good to get out.
yeah. Williamsburg, they've got the lambs out in they rotate the fields, but the baby lambs are out there. If anyone's interested in that, I know the kids love it. I love going to watch them jump around and carrying on.
Oh, I saw on Facebook that they're doing a Revolutionary War reenactment, I believe it is, at Endview Plantation this weekend, which might be an interesting opportunity.
But that'll piss the lambs off. Hear a bunch of gunfire going off. That might scare them to death.
And we've done a variety of the reenactments. They are fun to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did
but-
go to Lewis Gittner Gardens 2 weekends ago, where that guy goes all the time. The
Mhm.
cherry blossoms were out.
Mm.
And then I go every weekend and photograph old stuff out in North Carolina or rural Virginia.
the
Tom and
first-
I like to hit the road and just go look for old abandoned buildings.
That's always fun.
Yeah,
That's always fun.
Yeah,
So how come you guys don't post much on the Facebook page? I don't see a whole lot.
you mean on our,
James
Our-
River page.
yeah. I don't know. Most of what's in there, sometimes when we've done photo walks in the past, we would put pictures from our photo walks in there. We just haven't had a chance to do any in a while, and COVID's kind of put the stop on a lot of that, but we could. I think I post on my main page, so unless you kind of friend us or we friend each other, kind of just do it on the main page on Facebook.
Well, I'll
Okay.
tell you what, I'll post a picture on the Facebook page. And then if you guys want to friend me, you can.
okay.
But I will say this, you're asking what we're shooting. I just ordered, there's a brand new type of film that got announced last week. It's called Kodak Gold 200, but it's for medium format, brand new. So I bought me 15 rolls of that and it gets delivered tomorrow. So I'm pretty psyched because it looks beautiful on 35 millimeter. I can't imagine what it looks like on medium format.
Well, you'll have to definitely show us, that's for sure.
Yeah. I will be going to Miami the first week in May. I won't be at our May meeting. I will be at the inaugural Formula One race down there in Miami. And so I'll be taking lots of photographs down there at that, and hope to get some good stuff to share from that. It's something that I wanted to do from back in the 60s to attend a Formula One race, and finally got the opportunity to go to this one. So I'm gonna
That's cool.
take that up. And
It's a fun experience. I had the opportunity about 50 years ago to attend the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring.
oh,
And,
okay.
so I have some old film that I shot back then.
I've attended a number of the IMSA, the sports car races at Virginia International Raceway, and the it was Pirelli at the time. I think it's Blanc. I can't-
Audio guys, yeah.
Yeah, the World GT Challenge. I've attended that. In fact, I had a media pass for that and was able to get inside the fence and shoot from the other side of the chain link fence, the same side
It's
that the cars were on.
It's kind of rough shooting through that fence at VIR. We've gone down there a few
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, and it was really great, especially there at Oak Tree Turn, to get in there and just kind of squat down behind the tire barrier there in the turn and catch the cars going through there and picking up, because they're coming through there on 3 wheels. Usually they have the right front wheel in the air.
Yeah.
They go around that turn, so you get some interesting photos.
Good place to
VR is
practice
such a
landing.
beautiful track. The landscape, the buildings and everything there is it's such a beautiful venue to shoot photographs at.
I practiced my panning out there one day. It was like, that was all I did was panning, and I was surprised at how well I did.
Yeah, I shot some and shot some at 1/100th of a second to get it, get the car
Yeah.
focused, and then the background blurred and everything to do some of that. And that, it's a great place to do that because you can get up close.
When they've got the practices, you can roam around all over the place. We went to some of the garages for some of the car racers, or for the race cars, and we had the granddaughters with us, and the guys would say, get in it. I mean, I don't remember what cars they were, but they got to sit in the car. So we got to take pictures of them behind the wheel, and they thought they were hot stuff in their race cars because they do like it. So
when the IMSA group there, which is the IMSA group is the same ones that run the Rolex 24 there at Daytona. That's the group that does that. And when they're there, and when the World GT Challenge is there, the paddock is open to anybody. Anybody can walk through the paddock. You can go in the garage, there at the garage, and see the drivers. And I've got some interesting video during the World GT Challenge of Jordan Taylor and Ricky Taylor doing pit stop challenge, driver change challenge, or practice. They were practicing for driver changes during the race. So they would start the clock, and they would go through the motions of getting out of the car and changing the seat insert and getting back in the car, and see how long it takes to get it down to less time than it takes to refuel the car.
Yeah. That's cool.
I have a photo that was accepted at the New York Center for Photographic Art. They had a gallery. It's a jury show. It's a gallery that's on the human body was what it was. And in fact, it was one of the photos there that I had submitted it was I believe it was the second one, the black and white photo, the woman on the on the stool. That one was accepted and will be there at the New York Center for Photographic Art for about a year.
That's pretty cool.
Road trip.
It's online. It's an online gallery, so
okay.
Yeah, so I didn't have to ship them a printed framed copy of it. It was just it's all online, so that was good in a way. Anybody else have anything going on or have any plans in the future? And I can't remember what Phyllis has somebody coming for the May meeting. I can't remember who that was now. What the subject is going to be. That it's going to be at the church, I believe, in May.
I do have some. I am unfortunately the treasurer, so I will be collecting money for dues. But after a few months, if you've entered any contests and you haven't paid dues, you get knocked out. So I did post my address if you want to send me a check, or I think we are supposed to meet in person next month. You can pay me there. Hate to do it, but I got to. Gotta do my spiel.
I'm looking at the email that Phyllis sent out. I think it's Ed Robinson is going to be presenting in person in May. And then June, it's something just says flash information. In July, she has a photo walk.
I know Phyllis has stepped down from being secretary. She was doing, vice president.
Right.
And secretary. We need some help and some volunteers to kind of fill in some spots. If anybody's, I know there's only a few of us here, but to fill in some spots and kind of help bring in some speakers. That was awesome. I really enjoyed his tonight, but
really was down to earth too. It wasn't so technical that you couldn't.
Yeah. He did that for one of the groups up here in Richmond, and when he did, then I asked him. I said, "Hey, would you do this for the James River Camper Club?" He said, "Sure." He'd love to.
I wonder if he'd do it for my other club, because we're looking for people. We're strictly Zoom.
Well, he probably would.
Because he doesn't have to leave home.
I can give you his email address if you would. I can send you that if you would like to contact him.
I would. I
I'm
would,
sure he would do it. He had no issues, with doing it on Zoom, and it's easy because he can you do it anywhere on Zoom.
right.
Um, and it's, it's a lot of times it's easier to get speakers on Zoom, when they don't have to travel.
Yep. Yeah.
Particularly the gas prices today. I figured up it cost me to drive to one of our meetings down there at the church would cost me
Yeah.
$30 round trip and just gasoline alone.
Yeah.
I get
Thank
my
goodness I live
motorcycle.
here.
I get my motorcycle inspected tomorrow, so that's 55 miles a gallon. So it's time to break my whole helmet out.
I may have to park my Jeep. It's a lot less than my Durango. So.
This trip to the Formula One race, I figured it's going to cost me right at around $1,000 in fuel, just for the fuel alone for that. Because I'm towing a 8,000 pound or 8,500 pound camper behind my 7,500 pound diesel pickup truck.
Oh my gosh, you got diesel. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and diesel is, at $4.99 down the street from me here.
Get a smaller car, sleep in it.
Hey, Kemp, how far are you from the gardens, the Lewis Gittner Gardens?
I'm about it's probably about 10 miles or so.
Okay.
I'm out.
So,
The gardens, the Lewis Gittner Gardens, they're lakeside, and just north of Richmond in the lakeside area. I'm out by the Richmond Airport.
okay. I was wondering how that Virginia barbecue was nearby there. I saw. I didn't stop to eat there. I don't think it was open on Sunday.
I don't recall that I've ever eaten there.
So I ended up doing Ronnie's barbecue and then going down to Malvern Hill to the battlefield there to photograph some of that. So that was kind of neat.
That was one of the places I wanted to see about. I would love to do a light painting photo shoot out at Malvern Hill with the cannons, and then with the chimney that are out there from the
the parsonage.
Yes, I think that area would be a great place to do light painting at night, but the park closes, so I would have to get permission to do it ahead of time.
Hey, Gregory, did you just friend request me?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, I just accepted it. I just want to make sure it's you, because if I don't know the people, I kind of hesitate. You don't have the same last name as what's on your screen there.
Yeah, well, with social media, I try not to use my last name.
Yeah, don't let me. Just want to make sure. I'll go through. My phone's been dinging. I kind of check it, make sure I don't miss something I need to do. So maybe we can set up a photo. I'm gonna be busy the next 2 months, but get up to Gittner Gardens. I haven't been there in years. And they're beautiful.
I didn't realize how small it was compared to like Norfolk Botanical.
Yeah. Well, even the zoo's nice. Has anyone been over to the zoo to shoot?
The Richmond Zoo, or the
No,
North?
I've never been to the Richmond, but the Norfolk Zoo. Sorry. Yeah.
Norfolk Zoo is real nice. They've really redone that in like the last 5-10 years. It's gorgeous.
I
Which
haven't
one?
been since COVID started, but it is nice.
I've never been to the Norfolk Zoo. I've been to the Richmond Zoo.
I've never been to the Richmond one.
I didn't know Richmond had a zoo.
Yeah, it's out 360 west of Richmond a little ways.
Does anyone like to shoot old vehicles? Old rundown, dilapidated, all kinds?
Yeah,
I
Bill
do.
Duncan.
Huh?
Yeah,
The truck graveyard. Well, these are trucks and cars and all kinds of stuff. That's good in the fall when you don't have to worry about snakes and spiders and stuff like that. I don't like
Oh.
climbing through the weeds.
The-
Out
there's some
most
really
of
cool-
Charlottesville.
It's in Columbia.
Columbia, Virginia. It's out
Yeah,
60 west of Richmond. Out,
the old truck
Powhatan.
graveyard.
Yeah, it's out Powhatan County.
I thought they had sold that place.
They have, but
Mr. Duncan
apparently,
died.
huh?
Yeah, Mr. Duncan died about 2 years ago.
Yes, I know someone else has owned it, but they've been letting photographers come up. So I think
Yeah.
if you call them, you could probably line up a group to go.
The Camera Club of Richmond is going out there. I don't think it's this Saturday. I believe it's next Saturday. It's a great place. That's where the photo that I had of the boots sitting up there in the windshield of the milk truck, that was from P.L. Duncan.
Yeah, well, I got that same picture too. That boot gets moved around. But they're kind of neat, but you got what's over in the cow pasture, you got a bunch of trucks and it's kind of cool watching this tree grow up through the was it the smokestack, whatever that that's on the side of the truck, the smokestack, whatever it
Yeah.
is, I don't know, and kind of growing out of it. It's weird looking.
If,
Just got to watch out for cow patties on that side, that you don't step in them.
if you like restored vehicles, there is a fantastic museum in Colonial Heights.
Really?
It's the what's the name of it? It's a tractor and truck museum. Let's see, let me bring up the page here.
Don's taking notes. I see him writing.
Yeah, it's
Find us some new places to go.
Keystone Tractor Museum.
that's it, Keystone.
Okay.
Keystone Tractor Museum. They have, and it's huge. It's like 100,000 square feet or so. And there's just rows and rows and rows. Here, I'll share you some photos that I've taken there.
What's the name of it?
Keystone. Keystone Truck and Tractor Museum, or Tractor and Truck Museum.
Okay, I have to look that up.
There's, on the topic of museums, there is a museum up in Philly, and I can't remember the name of it, but my in-laws are up in Philly. And they have a series of 6 photography workshops. It's about once every 5 or 6 weeks. And it's only $25 for a 3-hour workshop, and then you get an extra hour or 2 in whatever part of the exhibit they've got open that day, but you get behind the ropes to actually take pictures. So I'm gonna start taking some trips up there, and it's 125 if you sign up for all 6 workshops, but 25 per day if you do the rest of them. So I'm gonna make an excuse to go see my in-laws.
That sounds like a good one. Like
Yeah.
a nice place to shoot. Well, Eastern State Penitentiary is cool too. I did a workshop up there, and they the guy, we went Fonthill Castle. That was part of it, but Eastern State Penitentiary was really cool to shoot, and we were able to get in an hour or 2 before they opened. But it was nice.
This is, I think, the first time I went there. They have some really old tractors. I gotta move this out of my way here. There we go. And, as you can see, some very old things, and just rows and rows and rows of tractors.
Huh.
And other things too, lots of trucks.
Interesting place.
yeah, some weird stuff in there, and they have a lot of restored cars. So yeah, it's a fantastic museum. The quality of the restorations that are there are top notch, as good as anything. In fact, since I went there, I went up to the ACA, the Antique Automobile Club of America Museum in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And the quality of the restorations here are just as good as they are at that museum up there. And it's owned by one person. This thing is. He's got a lot of money invested in that place. Lots of money. I've been there about 3 times. So it's a great place to go. In fact, every time I've gone there, it's been for a photo shoot that I've gone to. All right, well, thank you,
I guess
everybody.
it's short meeting tonight.
Well, let's see, what time is it?
It's a little after 8.
Yeah, so we're a little over an hour.
Yeah,
I'm-
but it was interesting.
Yeah, it was. And I'm glad everybody, or a number of people got on early so we could do some social interaction before. That's good. I like that for when people come on. Always, whenever we have a Zoom meeting, I'll start it up at least 30 minutes ahead of time so that people can join in and we can shoot the breeze, do the things that we normally do before a meeting in person.
Yeah.
So like I said, I won't be there next month, but I'll see y'all in June.
Sounds good.
All right. So good evening, everybody. All
Well, it was nice meeting
Well-
everybody.
right.
Well, have fun on your trip.
Thank you.